Good evening. This is Stedman Fry, along with my co-host Amanda Goodman-Berry and Flex McGee, with Delta Workers Unite, the Working Class Podcast, your newest resource for news, updates, and information on the State of the Union drive and how you can get involved. We'll bring you interviews and stories from workers just like you and us who want to share happenings as they see them. We'll also be debunking the falsehoods and misconceptions about the union and giving you the tools to do the same. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you will know when we post or go live. Thank you. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, what's up?
Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
So I am your host, Stedman Fry, joined by my co-host and three friends of the show. I'll pass it to Amanda. She can kind of give her introduction and we'll go down the line.
All right, I'm Amanda Goodman-Berry, Minneapolis Ramp, and I'll pass it off to Flex McGee.
Yo, Flex McGee, ATL Ramp. Excited to have our brothers in here. Continual guests, man. These are co-hosts as well, man. Make sure you show them the same love that you show us. And I'm just happy to be here, man. What's up, Dan, Pat, and Earl, man? I'm gonna pass it over to Earl, man. Earl, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? My name is Earl Hunt, Philadelphia Ramp for Delta Airlines.
I'm Dan McCurdy. I work on Minneapolis Ramp, Delta Airlines as well.
Pat Gores, work for Delta Airlines out in Minneapolis.
Fantastic. So this is the biggest show we've had. So I think this is just a good opportunity to celebrate that, engaging with coworkers, and really reaching out. I always like to try to let people know in the comments if you ever want to join the show, coworkers, if you want to join the show, you can always email us. Emails are going to be located on the YouTube page. You know, if you have any topics or whatever, as I say at the end of every show. But today we're going to be taking a critical look at profit sharing and kind of all the things that come with it, you know, because, you know, one of the kind of consensuses that we've had, I guess, about this topic is it isn't really just profit sharing alone, and it really touches a lot of different aspects of our work in life. So I want to open the floor up for Dan to kind of take control at this point. He's got some really good information, and I'll stop talking.
Thanks, Stedman, and thanks for joining us as well, whoever's on right now. With profit sharing, you know, we were having a little bit of a conversation before we started, and you won't find any of the six of us that are ungrateful for profit sharing. We're very grateful for profit sharing. Because we understand that it's needed to bring us up to the unionized carriers' wages. What Delta likes to do is they like to talk about our wages and combine profit sharing along with wages as if it's the same item. And it's not. Profit sharing should be a bonus that goes above and beyond. But at Delta, it's used to play catch up with the unionized carriers. Right now, we're in third out of fourth place whenever it comes to base pay. To me, for employees that are generating these monstrous profits, I believe that, like the pilots, we should be industry leading in that we get a thank you above and beyond that is in the form of profit sharing. But Delta does not use it that way. So I think that that's one of the ways. I mean, we need to get to the table because it goes much further than that. Like Delta eventually, They will. They're going to drag their feet, but they're going to give us a raise, and they might even make us industry leading. They're going to give us a wage increase, but it's going to come over time. Our last wage increase took 18 months between the increases, where the unionized carriers, it's once a year. So Delta gets a savings by dragging it out even longer than the unionized carriers. And so when we talk about profit sharing, it's important not just to discuss profit sharing, because that bonus is used to catch us up. But what Delta does when they do these celebrations and when they talk about profit sharing, they completely ignore the fact that we have 1 week less of vacation than both United and American. We have 2 weeks less of vacation than Southwest Airlines. Our retirement benefits are completely left behind when you compare them to the unionized contracts. You look at our sick time, we don't have it. The other ones do. You look at OJI, other airlines get paid out at 100% and still have a payroll relationship. We get the 60% pay. There's just it's so much bigger than profit sharing, and I know that Delta has us right now. They want us to focus just on profit sharing, but I urge you not to do that. What we have to do is sit down at the negotiating table, and anything that Delta wants to give us, whether it's wages, work rules, any of that stuff, it has to be written down in a contract, because I can also tell you that my time as a Delta employee, Delta's reduced our profit sharing twice. And one of those times was in 2015. We got 21.46% of our wages in profit sharing. And Delta, like a spigot, they decided to turn that down. They thought that was too much for us. So the following year, we got 10.3% of our earnings in profit sharing. So I just urge people that get like drawn into profit sharing. Listen, these union contracts negotiate so much more for workers than just the excessive profit that we're expected to allow trickle down to us. We're worth more than that. We deserve to have a seat at the table. And I'll pass that on for anybody else that wants to add some information.
I have some of the percentages. Amanda sent me a screenshot, and Dan, you sent me a picture. So your picture's a little cleaner. I'll show both. But for now, I just wanted to bring up that that picture so we could see and kind of give a little bit of context to the numbers you were talking about. So if we see here from 2015 to now, you can see the ranges in profit sharing that we've had. And more often than not, and the graph Amanda has, which I'll bring up also, has the actual the pot, so to speak. That's what they call it, the profit pot that they give us, and the percentage. But we see here we've gotten 10% more than not. And so absent those numbers with the actual billions in profit that we made, it's hard to contextualize it. But more often than not, we've made 10%. In 2015, let me see. Let me just try to pull that up right quick. In 2015, we made, so from this graph, I hope it's clear. I'll try to zoom in a bit just to try to make it a little clearer. But it's 1.5 billion in 2015 we made, and we got a 21.46% profit sharing. And we made 1.4 billion in 23, 1.4 billion in 24, and you got 10%. We got 1.6 in 2019, and you got 16%. And so, kind of to your point, Dan, with the way that they kind of change how they do to fit their own needs, you know. Did that graph pull up? It didn't pull up. I don't think it pulled up. Let me see. Here, pull up the first graph. But so for 2015, it was 1 billion, and we got 21%. And in 2023 and 2024, we had 1.4 billion profit each of the years in the pot, and we've gotten 10%. And then in 2019, we made 1.6 billion, so more than any other year on that span from 2015 to now, and we got a 16.7% profit sharing. And then in 2020 and 2021 and 22, the pandemic years, 2020 we got nothing. 21 we got 1%, and then in 22 we got 5%. And so again, to kind of reiterate the point that I was making now with the figures, Dan, you talked about how the company can at a whim decide what their metrics are because we don't have anything written down. We have nothing concrete to hold the company to. And I know we talked about the wider implications of having a contract and what that would mean. So if Pat or Flex or Earl or Dan again or Amanda, if anybody would like to kind of jump in about that, as we were talking about the contract and the differences and what those impacts have on us as workers and the industry at large, I definitely want to pass it over to one of you.
I would say Earl take it because Earl sent me the graph and I just sent it over to you. And he had studied the graph. So between Earl or Dan or Pat, I think they can elaborate on that a lot more than I can.
My thing, excuse me, my thing is with the profit sharing. I'm grateful for the profit sharing, but the way I look at things, you have a work-life issue that has to be addressed at Delta. You know, when I see employees of mine out on disability and have to return back to work early because they can't afford to stay out because they're only getting 60% of their pay, that's an issue. You know, when we're dealing with short staffing every day, that's an issue. You know, a lot of work-life issues that need to be addressed. You know, it's funny how the company does the comparisons with profit sharing. They compare it to the Americans, the Southwest, but in showing how Delta is industry leading when it comes to profit sharing. But you don't see the comparison when it comes to your medical premiums. You don't see the comparisons when it comes to having proper staffing on the job. You don't see those elements where in those fields, Delta should be industry leading, but they're not. Only thing they do have is this with profit sharing. That's my main issue.
Well, yeah, and profit sharing comes at the expense of other benefits, kind of what we were talking about of, you know, we do not have the highest pay, we do not have the most vacation time, we don't have the most sick time, we don't have OJI time. Our insurance premiums are going up, and they're changing seems like every year we're getting new plans, and like that's where that money is a big chunk of those billions of dollars that Delta makes is coming out of denying us these benefits that the unionized carriers have. And there's something that's really interesting too so I started in 2015. And so my first full year at Delta was that big 21% profit sharing. And that was coming over from the regional DGS side. That was fantastic. But they changed the formula, and even Delta's own wording, they admit that profit sharing is not guaranteed. The term they use is it's at risk. Unfortunately, this will only be accessible to Delta employees, but if Delta employees go on DeltaNet and search profit sharing brochure, and you'll have to go through the classic DeltaNet to see it, but there's a brochure in there that flat out talks about how profit sharing is at risk and a higher base pay is much safer because it's guaranteed money, and how that then trickles into your overtime pay, the value of your sick time, or your PPT, excuse me, the value of your vacation time, and how it just all kind of builds off of that. So Delta picks and chooses how they talk about this topic depending on what suits them best. So yeah.
So we was
And
talking earlier just a little bit about like what Delta does in different stations, like as a for profit sharing. Not that this is a big idea, but it is a big idea. And I would be curious to know, like, what did they do for you guys in Detroit for profit sharing? What did they do for you guys in Atlanta? What did they do? I'm off the property for right now. What did they do for us in Minneapolis? What did they do for you guys in Philly? What did Delta make that look like to the media and to the public in each station because of profit sharing? We all know that it's just a show, but what did they do differently in each station, like to celebrate profit sharing? Go ahead,
go ahead,
Flex.
Flex.
Well, to give you, because I'm here in, headquarters, like we had Big Boy perform. Last year we had Ludacris perform. Like they will go to all ends of the earth to make sure that we find somebody who relates to the people that we're talking to, and they will make sure that they have them perform for us. I'm pretty sure they didn't perform for discounted rates or for cheap. I don't know the exact numbers, but like that's what we had.
Bring
Like
that up.
last year was Ludacris. That last year was Ludacris, and this year was Big Boy, and that's money that we can actually be having going into the profits of the people. Like why Big Boy was performing is somebody sitting out right now on 60% set pay that can't like figure out how to pay their bills because we paying Big Boy to sing his songs. Like there's so much that goes into profit sharing and what all of this is. Like it's always a spectacle in Atlanta. We have so many people in Atlanta who always speak up and say how Atlanta doesn't there you go, Big Boy. And how Atlanta doesn't like respect the fact that we don't need everybody to know when I get off of work that I got some money this week. It turns us into targets. Like this has continuously been said year after year after year. But that's not what's important at Delta Airlines. Like employee safety, and this is my opinion. Employee safety, I understand. I feel like in the neighborhood I live in, I feel like I'm safe because I don't really wear a lot of Delta stuff anymore. But employee safety is never what's important. What's important is the numbers we put up and making sure we hit our metrics. I just had this conversation with a supervisor or a GM actually, not a supervisor. I just had this conversation with a GM recently, and I was telling them how like employee safety is all good and that's what we want to do until it's time to meet metrics, and that's the facts. You know what I'm saying? The reason why our profit sharing is so much higher than everybody else's is because our labor costs are so low. You know what I'm saying? When things happen to us as employees, we always on the bottom end of you're always in bankruptcy if something happens to you. Like what I gotta hurry up and get back to work because I can afford to stay in this status, in this state. And that's an issue. That's what we were fighting against. And when you have those conversations with your employees who've been through it, they understand. But like, when you're younger, especially when you're younger, you feel like you're invincible. So none of this stuff is gonna really affect you the way you think it is until it happens to you. You know what I'm saying? Currently in Atlanta, we have a situation to where we try to put all the handles on the side that you're going to be on offloading bags. If there's a problem, like we have a certain manager who says, "Hey, go over here because we got to push people through there." So now you're grabbing wheels and the little stands and stuff. Like they tell you safety first, but this is not safety first. This is not what safety first means. And I promise you, in Atlanta, when you have these conversations, they'll tell you if you grab 3 or 4 bags, and I was told this. Once you grab 3 or 4 bags out of there, you can turn the bags out any way you want. Nobody's thinking about the fact that you got your shoulders at shoulder level trying to do all of this stuff. Nobody thinks about any of this stuff. We need to unionize because there is nobody advocating for us. They advocate for numbers at Delta Airlines. That's it. That's why they make more money than anybody else. It's my opinion.
The one thing that every Delta employee knows is that the Delta cares about public image, and that's pretty much it. And the proof in that is that all of these events are always held within eyeshot of the public. Like if you want to go get a plate of food, you got to carry it in front of the public. Delta doesn't care if you went up there mad or happy or whatever it was. They just know that the public is going to see you walking back down to your break room with a plate of food, and it looks like they're taking care of you. And when they do that with events like this, with profit sharing, it doesn't address the other items that need to be addressed. It doesn't address the vacation, the benefits, the work rules, the respect, the retirement. It doesn't address any of that stuff. And it makes it look like, because they take out full page ads as well in newspapers to tell the public how much they're taking care of us in these profits. And it's weighted heavily towards the high wage earners and not necessarily baggage handlers. They're getting 3, 4, 5 times as much as what we are, just because they earn that much more than what we do. So if Delta was serious about addressing these items, they would love to have a union on the property. We would sit down and we would negotiate all these items. But instead, they just want to do public image, make it appear as if everybody's happy, and that's it. We go down to the break room and we eat our food. But what we want to do, the 6 of us and a whole lot more people at Delta, by unionizing, is to bring them to the table to talk about those things that they refuse to talk about whenever we're forced to go up to get that plate of food in front of the public.
And
And-
oh,
Good take,
go
Dan.
ahead, Earl, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and what Dan is saying is facts, because I know like a week ago, I was getting on the employee bus leaving my shift, and it's a girl that I know, that we talk at the time. She works for American. She has about 10, 11 years, and we always talk when I see her. And she was saying to me, she said, well, Earl, you guys get ready for the big profit share. And I was like, yeah, but I wish I had the benefits that you have. And she looked at me. She said, what are you talking about? I said, we don't even have sick time. She said, we don't have, see, you guys don't have sick time, Delta, big Delta? I said, no. I said, we have PPT. So if I call out sick tomorrow, it comes out my PPT bank. I said, we don't have no sick time. We don't have no OGI time. I said, you were for American. You have all those benefits, right? She would say, yeah. I said, I had those benefits at Northwest. I said, that's the thing, it's the profit sharing. It's what Delta puts that image on about profit sharing, but it's not everything. There's other areas where it needs to be addressed with the company as far as with our benefits. So what Dan is absolutely saying is 100% correct.
And Rob in the comments said all bread and circuses, which I agree. So we put the numbers up for Big Boy to book him. That's his official booking website. Between 80 and 150,000. Pat provided the link to that website, and so you have to ask along the same bread and circuses line, why would a company be willing to invest this kind of money in a public relations drive instead of investing that money in its employees? And the reason is because it's cheaper. In 2009, when we had our first union drive after the merger or during the merger, however you want to look at it, 2008, whatever, Delta paid millions of dollars to hire a company to actively work against us unionizing.
Right.
Why would they pay millions of dollars to do that? Because it was cheaper than the long-term cost of having a union on the property for the company, where you'd have your employees have a contract that you had to be obligated to by law, follow. So when it came to pay or other benefits that we negotiated contractually, legally, you were bound to that, where now you can do whatever you want and portray it however you want, whenever you feel like it. Give you 20% for this amount of money, and then you get 0.1% or 0.1 billion less this time, and you get half. Not Pat, Dan was saying like a 53% cut in profit sharing. When the wages increase at 18-month intervals, or I think we've had some that was like over a 2-year period, but maybe this was before 2015. And so what this all does is it draws out the benefit of a raise, right? We already have our healthcare benefits increase every time we get a raise. So you offset that, right? We already have some of the worst, if not the worst, healthcare in the industry. But your healthcare premiums increase with every raise. And then you factor in a normal healthy economy, as I've said on the show before, the government wants, and every company wants 2% inflation. They want a 2% increase in inflation for their profits, 2% increase in profits. And so if you give us a 5% raise over 2 years, what you essentially done is given us that 2%, and you've tried to portray it as a 5% raise, right? Because you've dragged it out for so long that we're just where we started. It isn't a benefit. It isn't a boost. We're where we started. And because we don't have a contract, we're not able like the other companies, to negotiate a yearly pay increase on our anniversary date, like we used to have, that could actually meet our needs, or cost of living adjustment. Like Pat, you talked about that when you were on our show last with United, where if they don't negotiate a contract before May 1st, they're still going to get a raise because they have a cost of living increase built into their contract. And so they will be making more money than us either way, whether they negotiate a new contract or not. And so this is something we need to understand. I said this, before on the show. A coworker was asking what are the pros and cons of a union, and I think we can all agree, at least in this aspect, that there are no cons to having a greater voice in your workplace, right? And this is essentially what having a union is. It's not, it's not a club. It's not some kind of extra level of scrutiny, but it is the opportunity to have a say in the day-to-day operation of your workplace, right? It's the democratization of labor and work. And so how can that be a bad thing? How can people being able to control how their job functions in a way that benefits everybody, right? We're not, it's not like when kids are, running for school president, you say, if I'm elected, we'll have ice cream for lunch. But it's in the ways that meaningfully benefit all of us at work. Having OJA time and sick time, having reasonable wage increases, having good healthcare benefits, right? Having a say in new procedures and policies, making sure we have adequate equipment and staffing, right? So that you can mitigate and minimize some of these injuries and some of these issues that we are going to have just because of the nature of the job, right? So go ahead, Flex. I'll let you go.
No, man, because you're killing it out here. But the one thing, it's so funny that you say pros and cons of being union. So when I get people who ask me that question, what they actually are expecting you to say is that they want you, they want you to confirm they don't feel like unions have value. And that's what really that question is all about. They want you to say, oh, I didn't like the fact that Flex did such and such, such and such, and he didn't do this, that, there, and the third for me in my situation. That's what they're really looking for. And a lot of times what people don't understand is like, these are the people you elected. Like, that's the thing. Like, when I have conversations with old Northwest guys who say, man, yeah, we probably need a union, but we might not need the IM. And you start asking them about their situations, they start telling you about a person that they never tried to unelect. And it's like, these people don't even work here no more. Like, that's one of the biggest issues that you get when you're dealing with like old unionized people and you're talking about the IM. Like, I've dealt with people here in Atlanta who talk about stuff that happened at Eastern, stuff that's not even possible anymore, to where the IP can just take you straight out and put you on strike. Like, stuff that's not that the rules have changed since those days. But because that's their experience, that's what they all think that all of this experience is. And that's a tough part in this. You know what I'm saying? There's no con to being unionized, in my opinion, versus being non-unionized. Non-unionized is nothing happens when you need it to happen. Unionized is saying, hey, we got a voice in saying what can happen. But when you tell people that, they don't always get it. And I understand that too. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to make it say I don't understand how they feel about it. But listen, if you don't have a union, you don't have a say. That's the bottom line. Now, I don't care what I don't what I'm looking for. Like, what little policy or club or what people, what little committee they put together. That's the word I'm looking for, committee. It doesn't help you. It just doesn't help you. That you can, if they tell you that, yeah, it's this little like committee you can go to, but it doesn't help us system wide, and that's the problem. My opinion.
So I want to swing this back over to the really Pat or Dan, because they really are a numbers guy, our Earl. The myth of always talking about if we vote a union in, we'll lose our profit sharing. All the if you do this here, this will happen with profit sharing. You might not get this, you might not get that. So I kind of want to swing back over to some of the myths about profit sharing and some of the facts about profit sharing. And you guys really have studied this a whole lot more than I have. But I just want people to truly understand what that myth is about profit sharing, and what you can also have more than just having a profit sharing. Dan or Pat, Earl, one of y'all can take a swing at that because you guys really understand the numbers behind what Delta does.
Well, I'll do a tidbit and then I'll pass it on to these guys. And my tidbit is that rules of the road says always keep your deals. That's a core philosophy of rules of the road. Twice, Delta has reduced the profit sharing percentage payout to us. Twice. In 2015, we got 21.46% of our wage in profit sharing. The following year, because they reduced it by over half, we got the 10%. In that year, what they said is, this is going to be a good deal for you. They had to sell it to everybody. This is going to be a good deal. And what it turned out for me, they gave me, it was a $1.71 raise, which looked really good. But what they didn't tell us is how bad it was going to reduce our profit sharing. And it took away, I'd have to look at the numbers again, but I believe it was $2.33 an hour. If you just worked your straight time hours, they gave us $1.71, but they took away $2.33. So they took away more than they gave us by redoing that profit sharing formula in that year. If they literally would have done nothing, we would have came out ahead. So what we have to do, the reason that that a contract can put money in your pocket is because we sit down at the table and we talk about these things. We don't let these shell games allow for money to go in the right pocket and then be taken out of the left pocket. It's disrespectful, and Delta workers deserve to know exactly where your money is going, when they're putting it in one side, and how much they're taking out of the other side. That's. I'll pass it on.
And with the profit sharing, so if you have a manager or an OSM and they're telling the guys that, well, you're going to lose your profit sharing if we become unionized. Let me drop a little gem real quick. When all the airlines, I'm going back when there were 7 carriers on the property before the mergers, and all the carriers, we had to go through restructuring because of through 9/11 and that great recession that we went through. Profit sharing, during the negotiations with the unions and the airlines, that's where profit sharing was born. Because what happened was the concessions that we had to give out to help the company survive through those rough times, through the negotiations with the unions and the company, profit sharing was born. So when we come out of bankruptcy, the company becomes profitable, then the employees will receive the benefits when we become profitable. And I mean, we've been having profit sharing for about over 20 some years now. So it's become a standard now. It's become an everyday standard. But it's to the point where now is when it comes with Delta, they glamorify it. They're making it seem like they're the ones that introduced the profit sharing program, but that's not the case. It was a way to bring the morale back with the employees when the restructuring period came about. That's where profit sharing came. So when you have a manager talking about, well, it's going to go away, become unionized, it's the standard. Because all the airlines now, United, American, Southwest, they have a profit sharing program.
So, Pat, I have a question for you real quick. We're going to shift it over to you because your hand is up anyway. Dan said something really important that Delta, one of their real core rules of the roads is keep your word. Right, Dan? Keep your word.
Always keep your deals.
Yep. Always keep your deals. How can you see, with you doing the numbers the way you do them, that Delta has not kept their deal?
Well, I mean, for a few things. So I am very, very modestly can do tech stuff. Last summer, Delta actually changed their rules of the road and altered the language of it, which is just very bizarre to me and very against the idea of staying true to your core values that the CEO started, CEO Woolman or whatever his name was 100 years ago. But as for not keeping their deals, I keep having our hub director here sent out an email for profit sharing day and talking it up, and they in it she then talked about how, well, we have competitive pay, and then the shared rewards was one of the other things that was brought up. And you know they talk about wanting to take care of us, and we're one Delta family, and we care for each other, and passenger workers first. And that's just flat out not true, because we're falling behind by thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. You're not keeping your word to take care of us. To me, there is an inherent agreement. The moment I come to work, right, I go to work for a company, there's an agreement that I will be adequately taken care of for my work, for my labor, and into my future. Like, we all know that this job will wear down our bodies. It's the responsibility of Delta, the employer, where we are breaking down our bodies for them. They need to provide adequate pay, adequate care, adequate long-term health care, things of that nature, to be able to provide when those instances come up. And we just see it over and over and over again. Like, not having OJI time is a huge issue to me, because I haven't been severely hurt yet, but people on this podcast have been out for a few months
Mhm.
and have been really strung out and really limited by their wages, because we don't have that. Like, that fundamentally does not take care of the worker, and, like, to me, violates the agreement of worker employee. And I want to circle back to something Earl said. Sorry, Dan, just give me one more minute. The pilot's Instagram, Delta Alpha, had a great post where it talked about the history of profit sharing, and how Delta, even in their negotiations, has tried to negotiate it down. Like, if Delta could, they would continue to take away profit sharing. But we only have what we have because the pilots locked it in for us. I know we keep saying that, but in their contract, it says pilot and non-pilot employees. Like, the pilots are holding Delta accountable to keep their word and their promise. If it wasn't for our pilots contract, Delta would not keep their word or their promise to us for the profit sharing. That's all I've got for now. I'll ramble later, I'm sure.
Actually, I mean, that's pretty much what I was going to say. Like, Delta has, they want to turn a spigot on that profit sharing. And the truth of the matter is that some profit sharing is good. The company does want to give some, because you watch it at work. Like, people police each other. There's some benefits that do go to the company by giving some. They don't want to give 21.46% of our wages, but they want to be able to keep control of it to where they can hand out whatever they want to hand out. But think about, and this is what people should walk away when the company is telling us that it could go away, if we try to unionize. The company gets some benefits out of it because we police each other. We, if somebody misses a bag or they've got a bag in their cart, they get on each other about going to do it. When you're working short staffed, the manager comes up and goes, "Hey, but your profit sharing is going to be pretty nice, right?" So they stick us with it all year long, all these jabs on the reasons why profit sharing is good. And then they try to convince us that they're going to completely take it away. They don't want to completely take it away. What they want is complete control over it, because they can do what they've done in the past. As these profits, look at what's going on in America right now. And everybody sees it. I feel like everybody sees that the rich are getting richer and the poor are being left behind further and further. So are we going to do something about it? Like, we see it. These profits have gone through the roof. They could have kept their original word and kept us climbing that ladder with them, but they're doing the exact same thing that we see is a problem with the rest of our country. So it's where we step in, have a legal voice, and take them to the table and negotiate a contract that respects us all.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. And Pat too. Pat, I agree.
So Pat shared the Instagram post, and I want to show it just so we can kind of look at it and go over it. I'll read. Oh, nope, not that angle. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Um, so this is from it says profit sharing, the real story from Alpa. I guess Alpa's Instagram. The Delta pilot profit sharing plan was introduced as part of pre-bankruptcy negotiations. The plan provided the pilot group with the means to recover financial losses. So this is like what Earl was saying, through the many contractual concessions, including loss of pilot pensions when Delta returned to profitability. Profit sharing is a negotiated benefit. Sharing was negotiated to recognize the group's contractual sacrifices to ensure Delta survived bankruptcy. It is a return on the pilot's investment in Delta and recognizes our ongoing commitment to Delta's success, not a gift. Delta management suggests profit sharing is a gift given to employees to, quote, share in our success, end quote. The truth, it is a contractual benefit set
Mhm.
forth in the pilot contract. Delta management has repeatedly attempted to negotiate a reduction in profit sharing and pay less to all employees. If profit sharing was not negotiated as part of the Delta pilot's contract, Delta management could reduce or eliminate it. And this is the final slide. Profit sharing is made possible by you. Bottom line, profit sharing is a hard fought benefit that exists because of Delta pilot sacrifice. And this is Alpa saying this, so they're speaking specifically about the pilots. But for all the Delta workers and the tower, cargo, if any flight attendants are watching this on the ramp, understand that this is a sacrifice that all Delta workers are making all the time. We don't have a contract, and we are benefiting off of the contract that the pilots have, who you never see Delta try to demean or badmouth or convince pilots to leave their union. So understand that. But profit sharing is a hard fought benefit that exists because of Delta pilots' sacrifice, forethought, and skillful negotiations. Now, I will agree with that. Our strength and resolve ensure uh, ensure profit sharing continues to reward the pilot group and all Delta employees. And this is again from Delta Pilots Alpa. So, to reiterate what Earl was saying, what Pat just said, um, what Dan said, we need to understand that within that context, right? They're never going to do something that they can, uh, that they don't have to do. They're never going to do something like I always explain to people. When I talk to people, new hires or whatever, I always explain to people that Delta is always going to do whatever they can do, and they'll push the limit to do whatever they can get away with. And
Right.
we need to understand that, right? It's their business. Their objective is to make money, and our objective should be to do what's best for ourselves and our family, and our work group. Right? We need to keep that same mentality. Like Pat was saying, when you go to work, it is a contractual agreement between an employee and an employer. I trade my time for wages. You trade your wages for time as the employer, right? Because Delta knows, the board knows that in order for their operation to grow as large as they would like it to be, they need to hire people because they could never satisfy all of the necessary aspects of an airline with just the board or a couple hundred employees. So we make this agreement. Having a contract, a legal document, ensures that they are bound to uphold the agreement that we have all accepted. Right at this point, we exist at the mercy and whim of Delta Airlines. Right, whatever they do or don't do, we are at the mercy and benevolence of whoever's in charge. Right, every policy decision that is made is never made with any. It has never been made with my input. I'll speak for myself. I have never given any direct input that has influenced policy decisions one way or the other with this company. And so, with a contract, you'd have a direct input as a group, like the pilots have, to ensure that we're taken care of up to the standard that we deserve as the industry leader, right? We are the industry leader. And this is why, what the pilots were saying in that post is important, because Delta pilots per that post, are the industry leaders, and they get compensated as such. And that's the Delta ramp, cargo, baggage, whatever, flight attendants. If you're watching, if any of you happen to come across this video, we're industry leaders. We make Delta number one. And so, as I said in a previous show, it is not acceptable that we are just among the pack of airlines. We deserve to be compensated in all facets, from staffing to equipment to benefits to pay to profit sharing, all of that at the highest level. We deserve to be compensated at a rate commensurate with what we contribute to this airline success, right? And it's not a gift, as the pilots were saying. It's not a gift. We all go to work every single day, or every single day that we're scheduled to be at work, to contribute to this success. You couldn't give a profit sharing if you didn't make a profit. And so, a number we've talked about on the show, we contribute 40% of airline industry profits, with approximately 20% of airline staffing. And that's a large maximization of our workforce, our energy, our knowledge and skill, and our potential to make this happen. That increases profits. So I'll stop there. If anybody else wants to jump in and kind of give anything. Also, I was going to say, Pat, if you wanted to see any of your graphs, I still have your graphs available. So if you wanted to go over any of those with the OJT and PPT and all that stuff, if you wanted to go into any of that, I have that to pull up. We are at the 47-minute mark, so if this is one of our longer shows, and I don't want to impede on anybody who wants to speak, but I just like to kind of keep that so we all know kind of where we are, understanding that a lot of our listeners, if not exclusively all of our listeners, are working people who have other things going on. So
yeah,
I would like to hear Pat and Dan, Earl, because we're here every week, kind of wrap it up, because like I say, they are the one who really, really focus on the numbers a lot. And we'll be back here again next week, and just getting that out of them, because they have so much wisdom and knowledge that they possess around this topic. And I would like to hear from the three of them as we go into a wrap up to close out the show.
Well, what I'll say is that don't listen to the side noise. Like when people say they want the Teamsters, they want a different union, whatever it is, it's going to be the same people running for the positions. So if you don't like what's going on, or you didn't like it in the past, did you get involved? That's what you have to ask yourself. So if you didn't get involved, you're part of the problem, because you see a problem and you're not stepping up to address it. So I couldn't be more proud to stand with Earl, Amanda, Stedman, Flex, Pat. You guys are all awesome, and I look forward to continuing this battle going forward, because we deserve it. We deserve to unionize.
If anybody knows me, I'm a huge advocate for education. My whole thing with this campaign is educate yourself. And I know I've said this a million times. Educate yourself on what Delta Airline offers when it comes to ODI, sick time, retirement benefits versus the competitors, the United, the Americans, and Southwest. And then you can actually see what's going on. Education is the key to this campaign. So Delta workers, take the time out, research the material, and actually see what's going on with Delta versus the other competitors.
Yeah, if Delta workers, the deltaworkersunite.org website, go to our demands at the bottom of or near the bottom of the page. There are PDFs of all of the 3 contracts for American United and Southwest. Go read those. Go compare them to what we have and what we don't have. Like, I am 100% with Earl of like education. Learn what we have. Learn what we don't. Know, because those aren't opinions. Those aren't beliefs. Those are just pure, straight, cold facts. And then for the people who are sitting around right now, or for the Delta workers who are listening, stop waiting for the generosity of a multi-billion-dollar company. Their whole thing about existing is to generate as much money as they can. And if that's whether charging the passengers more or depriving us of benefits and wages, that's what they're going to do. They stop waiting for them to be kind and generous and open, because they're not going to. That is just not part of the system that we're in. So get involved, get your hands dirty, talk to people. Like, it doesn't happen out of the goodness of their hearts.
Flex?
If I could just jump in and say, I appreciate Earl, Pat, Dan, you guys' opinions and the work, the efforts that you put into this campaign. I can't thank you enough, man. The brothers, and we all do this. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to make sure that you get your praise during this pod today, to make sure people understand the amount of effort and work that you put into this. And I agree with everything you guys said, man. Like I understand and I get it. And I know we still have some people we have yet to convince. And I'm here for that work, and I'm ready for that work. And I am privileged to be doing that work with brothers like yourself. So that's really all I got to say, man. I am, man, the pod, bro. We out here doing what we gotta do, man. Amanda, back to you.
All right. And my last thing, I would like to do an invitation to the Delta workers, to anyone who's watching this, to please get involved. Come and talk to one of us. It's not just a Stedman, Flex, Pat, Amanda, Earl, Dan show. This is all of us show. And the more get involved, the more people come and get the knowledge and help sign cards and make phone calls. Just get involved and just come and see what it is that we do. And then it's the most beautiful and liberating thing to know that you're doing something to make your life better outside of waiting on Delta to do that. You're going to be waiting a long time. But if we can get this union in, we will make our life better. So I ask everybody to come and get on board and just come talk to us, get the information so that we can see what it looks like on the other side. You've seen what one side looked like. You get an opportunity to come and see what it looks like on the other side. So come sign cards, make phone calls, and let's vote this union in. That's all I would have to say at the end. And thank you guys so much for listening to us.
I know this kind of just happened in the news. They had the incident in Toronto, so I don't know if you wanted to do a moment of silence, but we can definitely send out our condolences to all people involved. This is unfortunately another aircraft incident. Seems like we've been having a lot of those recently. Hoping it's not a trend that continues. So we definitely like to send out our condolences to all the passengers, the employees, the families touched by this incident. So far, there have been no casualties. There have been some significant injuries, but this is another tragedy, and so we're wishing the best for all the families and everyone involved. But with that said, I'll close out. I want to say, as always, thanks for tuning in with us. If you have questions that were not answered, or maybe a specific topic you'd like to have addressed, leave us a comment and we'll get back to you. Also, all available links to information and materials are posted in the description. And also, as Amanda said, I want to just reiterate, get involved. Come on the show. You don't have to be intimidated. You can see and even interact with any of our guests, past guests. It's not hard to do. You're just talking to a group of friends and coworkers who want to hear your story and want to share in your experiences and want to have a union to improve the working conditions for all of us. So please get involved. Please sign a card. I have links, and I said this in the description, but I have links for requesting a card, for reporting interference. They're all in the description. I also keep the link to the AFL-CIO website where you can look at paying compensation for CEOs. And you can look up Ed Bastian and see how he's compensated. What does his profit sharing look like? his base pay is $900,000, but his total compensation is about $36 million. So, you know, that's money that could go towards employees and equipment. So he doesn't throw a bag. He doesn't fly an aircraft. He doesn't check in a passenger. He doesn't serve a drink. He doesn't make a connection. He doesn't haul cargo. And he makes $36 million in total compensation for 1 year. And so, as Dan was saying, this is just an example of the rich getting richer and that chasm between the working class and everybody above. So, again,
Respect the Delta difference.
Right, right. So remember, this is this podcast is powered by working people just like you in solidarity. Peace.
Good night.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Got one more
Sir.
comment. I want to try to just see what it's saying. Got one, a good one. Get involved. So that's it. Get involved. Get us out of here.
Thank you, brother.